Hey guys, so in this video we are answering the subscriber question: what happens when you get cheap with programmers or when you try to use them? So let's get into it. Well, this is of course a subjective thing as well, but all I can say is that from the people I know who have been in this industry for a while, and from the people I talk to, and for myself when this happens, I can give you my story. Usually what happens is that they leave. That's the video right there. They leave. Another thing that happens, but that has more to do. It has more to do with the programmer's level of personal maturity and growth and so forth. One of the most vicious things I have seen is where a fairly I've heard enough stories and I've met enough old coworkers to know that there are a genre of entrepreneurs or business owners out there who have they will exploit young programmers especially. They have some small little business, some small little company that can basically be run with a single PHP developer, and that's exactly how they run it as well. So, and they will viciously exploit the programmers' inexperience and for more or less force them to work long hours and do all this stuff. And the programmer can comply quite often simply because they don't really understand their own value, or they don't have the courage to stand up for themselves. And that does happen. I'm not going to lie about that. But if you are one of those people who are a little bit unsure about your position in the world, let me tell you this. You are, and I'm not joking, one of the hottest professions in the world. There is an enormous demand for your skills. If you know how to write software correctly at the professional level, you will not have a problem finding a new job. You shouldn't have. It's absolutely ridiculous how many people are looking for programmers these days. So if you feel that you are unhappy with your current spot, you should absolutely consider looking for another job. I mean, you shouldn't. It shouldn't even be a concern for you to switch jobs. Apart from, the regular stuff. If you feel, some type of attachment and so forth. But if you're being mistreated, you shouldn't stand for that. As for this question where. All right, so what happens when you get cheap with them? Well, in general terms, you don't really gain all that much from being cheap with programmers, because the fact of the matter is that today this is going to sound a little bit insane, but it actually is true. It is often easier for you to find money for your tech startup or things of this nature than it is to find good programmers. And the bottom line is that if you have the right programmers, that can make or break your company. They have that much impact on your business. If you have good programmers who really love what they do and they are engaged in the project, they will go the extra mile. They will build things well. They will raise the quality of the product. However, if you have the corporate mindset, or if you get cheap with programmers and so forth, because some companies don't actually have the office culture around, we call it a startup mentality, which is, I don't think that's completely accurate, but that is the idea, and I can go into in another video exactly what that means. But it is in essence the sort of mindset that a lot of the most skilled programmers are interested in they're interested in working in that environment. And it basically comes down to having this feel of camaraderie and feeling that you participate and that you contribute to your project, right? And you're being paid well as well. I mean, if you keep them happy, they're going to be engaged, right? However, if you build your entire company just on money in of itself, then you're not going to. It's actually going to damage your code base, because people who are just programming for money very rarely tend to give a shit about improvements or keeping themselves up to date with the latest tools or things of this nature. People who are exclusively in it for the money or the salary will get the job done because they're being paid to do so. But I can promise you, as soon as somebody else offers them something more, somewhere else, they're going to go and they're going to fuck off. People who have that as the only incentive is a very, very bad investment for a company. And as you can imagine, if you try to pay them less, it's just a matter of time before they fuck off. It's that simple. So that is the lay of the land for me. Whenever I used to work for a company where they had this claim where they had something they called career ladders, where basically the idea was that if you proved that you had a certain skill, you would advance and get a higher, fancier title and get higher up the ladder, if you will, and you should be able to progress regardless of what track you pick. So it shouldn't matter if I didn't want to be a manager or something of that nature, I should be able to get the same level of pay as a manager just by being very good at what I did. Now, the career ladder and the steps entailed, you like they outline that on paper. I read through all of this, and my immediate thought was that this is bullshit. Because the problem with outlining a set of hard requirements on paper for what you should know when you talk about technical excellency, that basically leaves you in one or two situations, and this is what law people do every day. You can interpret the definition. And as long as you can interpret it, that means that you have to have a distinction made for whoever is responsible for this. And that distinction is going to be, are you talking about that the thing that is stated as a requirement is the literal thing that you need to know, exactly that thing? Or is it up for interpretation or something that is equivalent? Because if it's the literal thing, that's what I told my boss. If this is the literal translation of all the things that we need to know in order to advance to our next career step, then nobody in this entire department will ever be able to be promoted, because we don't work with these things. If it's up for interpretation, I can get the highest salary tomorrow, because I actually just have to sit down with my coworkers and argue correctly, and then they will see that the definition is the one that I want. I can interpret the words in my favor. Said and done. I didn't get much out of that, so I started a little bit of a process, if you will, trying to push this idea, because I had a suspicion, and that suspicion was that this career ladder wasn't meant for you to progress on it, at least for not our department, maybe the other departments. We had a bit of a special situation, but I had that sensation that this was not designed for us to actually be promoted. It was something put in place by one department, while the people who actually had the money kind of just sat back and said, oh yeah, this sounds like a good idea, but we're still going to run the show as we usually do. And the way big companies usually run the show is that if you have coffee with the right person, or if you make a very big investment into office politics or contributions to the company, you might get noticed by somebody higher up the ladder. And I didn't really think that I basically wanted to prove that this was bullshit. So I started pushing, and I think it took me 3 months until I finally stopped. I couldn't get anywhere. And the worst part about it, or the best part about it, was that all I actually asked for was a sit down with the person in charge of this, so I could have a serious conversation, because I had already checked all the boxes. I had already filled out all the information they needed. All I needed was to sit down and have a discussion about it. I didn't expect to get the higher salary. I just wanted somebody to sit down and have that discussion. Couldn't get that to work in 3 months, so switch jobs. So what I want you to take away from this is that as an employer, if you get cheap with your programmers, that's going to damage your business a lot. If you ever get to a point where you get like a mass exodus or something from your tech startup, you're pretty much dead in the water. And trust me, programmers talk. We talk to each other. So if you have a shitty company, or you treat your employees shittily, it's likely that that will be noticed outside of your walls. So be careful with that. Just treat people well, and they will treat you well back. And for the programmers out there who may be treated poorly, that's on you. You are in very, very high demand, and you won't have a problem finding a new job. Have a great day.